Chronic migraine is 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for adults with migraine with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It prevents, on average, 8 to 9 headache days a month versus 6 to 7 for placebo.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Ask your doctor and visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
This is my song, this is my jam. This is my song, this is my jam.
It's the midweek drop, yeah.
This is my song, this is my jam.
Good morning.
Wait, confused. Say that again.
Good morning.
Morning, Tinto.
Don't know what was confusing about that.
It's because it's not morning for me. So,
oh, right.
I
Okay.
wondered if it's morning.
Oh, my bad. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tinto. How are you?
There we go. I'm doing great. Just want to start by saying thank you for sharing an incredible episode with the podcast. The feedback from the feelers has been incredible. They've been really engaged with your story. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you as well for the platform. I think there are lessons for everyone to learn, and I've also learned from the same platform. So yeah, glad I did it.
I thought I'd reach out to you to do this midweek drop because of something that you said in a text message. I think it was just yesterday or so. So, just having a chat here and there. And then you're laughing at, you're saying that you listened to your own episode and you're laughing at how much of a clown you were. And I was like, well, you weren't really a clown, you were just in love.
Yeah.
And then your response there was, I actually figured that all along. I never acknowledged why I was so stuck on him. I'm reading this off your message, by the way. So I have this idea of staying child-free, and since Peter had a vasectomy, I really felt would be aligned, and he seemed to be among the few men, at least those that I met, who were okay with me not wanting to have children. So I really focused issues on him and forced issues, and this is where we ended up.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to tap into your brain and how you're processing the idea of not having children. Because there's an episode that Nino Brown and I did, which is episode 159. It's the bonus episode for Ministry of Parenthood. And we spoke about how great it is being dads. And upon reflection and talking to other people, it was a very one-sided conversation, I think, because it didn't have the balance of a woman who eventually has to deal with having children and is by far impacted more significantly than we are as men, economically, career-wise, and physically, and mentally.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd have a chat with you to find out what your thinking was behind you not wanting to have children. So it's really yours for us to share.
So I think at the risk of exposing what may seem as trauma, please, for me, I find it very limiting to have children. And I know a lot of people may debate that, but I personally feel as if it will limit the approach I take towards my own life. And so my biggest motivation is actually the freedom and flexibility that comes with not having children. Like, I could wake up and probably relocate tomorrow and not have to put in so many other factors in mind, right? But if I did have a family, then I'd be considering things like kids will have to change schools. Is the environment suitable? Do we have the resources to do so? So for me, I look at it more from a point of freedom and flexibility. And I heavily find myself thinking that the bigger responsibility lies on the woman to probably nurture the kids, take care of them. I know for sure that these days dads are more present and stuff like that, but I do see it becoming at least majority of the tasks and responsibilities fall under the woman. So if I do assess my own capacity to commit to that level of responsibility, I feel as if it's probably easier for me to stay without a child.
So
Yeah.
so you say you're very careful not to unleash childhood trauma or some trauma somewhere. Why was
Of course,
why was that important for you to mention?
because this is a conversation I really like to have with my friends, especially those who have kids. And I'm always asking them, what was your motivation? How does it feel now? Are you content? And most of the people say they are content and they're happy and they enjoy motherhood. But some actually do acknowledge that it's quite intensive. And some say they'll stop at one and maybe not do more than that. Others say, if I knew, I wouldn't have done it. So I've had very different perspectives of the whole situation. When I do talk to some people, they say that it's probably an avoidance issue. And that's why maybe I thought this then exposes the trauma in terms of maybe there's actually an avoidance issue. Because again, my motivation is the flexibility and the room to just live a life that I am more in control of rather than have someone almost dictate how my life runs.
And the someone is the baby.
Yeah, the baby. Because Tinto, for me, you see, between 0 and 18 for that kid, as a parent, you actually have to be there. And I'd hate to be a parent who's absent. So if by now I already feel as if I don't have the capacity to do a full-time commitment to children, then I think I should probably hold. So going back to the avoidance part of it, so there could be a hint of avoidance, but yeah, for me, currently I still don't have the motivation to pursue a journey with children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's your relationship like with your siblings and stuff?
I only have one sibling, and we're not as close, mostly because we grew up in separate homes. And I went to boarding school pretty early, and so I've really pretty much lived a very independent life. And I've grown up in my own space. I've grown up doing things by myself, like any of my childhood activities would have been just by myself. And so by the time my sister comes along, then I was already in boarding school, so we didn't really mingle as much. And in the country I am in, the setup is that once you're in boarding school, you probably just go home once. Or rather, after 3 months, you go home for 1 month. After 3 months, you go home for 1 month, like that. So you see, you're pretty much at home for 3 months in a whole year. So there's not as much time to bond with them. So I never really bonded with them. But that's my only sibling, my only two.
Yeah, the reason why I ask that is so some of this sibling connection and bond is so good. It inspires people to want to have children of their own. And I just thought I'd get a sense of what that might have been like for you. And it looks like you're okay with your sister.
Yeah.
But then you also then mentioned that you've been independent and on your own from a very early age. How old were you when you went to boarding school?
I'm just about to say it in classes. I think must have been 12 or so.
About 12, yeah.
Yeah.
So from the time that you were 12, you've kind of been able to...
God, maybe even 10.
10? Oh, wow.
Yeah, 10, because we finished lower primary or rather the primary school is done by 14, and I was there maybe 5 years earlier. So yeah, it could have been 10 even.
Wow. Okay. So you've had that freedom and flexibility from about a long time. And then relationship-wise, have the relationships that you've been a bit restrictive? I know you just described one with the office guy, the office husband. Outside of that, have your other relationships been quite tight, quite restrictive?
Romantic relationships?
Yeah.
I think I only had one before that, and it was very, very flexible. If anything, I thought that one would lead to marriage. So, and that would have been someone who I'd have probably considered getting kids with. But once that relationship ended, and I wouldn't call it as restrictive because the partner was very open-minded about even my opinion with children, and he'd always say that at the end of the day, because I have to do most of the caring and I have to do most of the taking care, then they'd never be strict on how I want, so they'd be considerate of my opinion of that. But then now that the relationship ended, now my next one was with someone who had a vasectomy, which I really ended up hanging on to that concept just so that we won't have a conversation around kids, because it's already clear that there won't be kids. So I wouldn't say that I've had partners who've been so stringent, but again, I approach the relationships from the word go. I do mention that this is something I have top of my mind. What do you think? Where do you stand? And how do you think that then affects things?
Interestingly, one comment you made there about your ex is that he was very open-minded, and part of his open-mindedness made you consider having children with him.
Yeah.
Whereas with the vasectomy guy, you definitely did not want to have children with him.
Yeah.
So my question, is this really about having children or more about who you have them with?
I think now it's actually about having children. Before then, I had the perspective of if I do find a partner who is willing to do most of the commitment and most of the work that comes with it, then I'd have been open. So I think based off those two relationships, now I actually do not want to have those kids. So yeah, there has been a change of approach there.
What are some of the things, because you've referred to doing most of the work in carrying the burden. For you, what is that work? And the reason why I'm asking this is I'd like to get a sense of the extent to which a guy can help with some of the work. I know they can't help with carrying the baby because we can't get pregnant.
Yeah.
We can't help with giving birth because we don't have a birth canal for the child to come through. And we can't, well, we can kind of help with breastfeeding, but we depend on you to express the milk and put it in a bottle, and then and then we get up,
and then you feed the child.
But then the manufacture of the milk, we actually can't. But the extraction, hopefully, there's something we can do to help it. Because I remember when my son was really, really young, one of the things I was very keen on doing was doing the feeds early in the morning. Just so that she could have some rest. I was very keen on that for a long time.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling left out of that process. And so feeding with the bottle was very enjoyable and was something I looked forward to. So what I'm really asking is, tell me what some of that work is that comes with having children that perhaps you feel is too much and you would rather not have.
I tend to look at it from different perspectives. For instance, there's a physical support, like the kid is here and someone is stepping in to help, maybe in raising, like you said, maybe feeding, maybe changing of the diapers and stuff like that. But there's also the emotional support, because I tend to think that you can't just assume that the kid doesn't have any emotional needs to be met. So I'd expect that there'll be emotional commitments to make in terms of supporting the kid to nurture their own emotions, to navigate their own emotions, navigate life circumstances. There's also things like religious support, if you guys choose to be supportive in that way. So I don't just look at it in terms of physical support. I also try to look at other areas of that kid's life. So when I look at all that, my day-to-day feeling is that life is already demanding as it is, and now adding something else, because even as a grown-up, you're navigating all those aspects by yourself. You're navigating your physical existence, you're navigating your emotional well-being, you're navigating your mental well-being. So all those things, and then I add a child on top of that, and I have to do all that for them, is what feels like it could be draining for me. Not to forget, we're existing in a capitalistic sort of setup. So you still have to do the work itself to make a living and be able to provide for the child. So if I put together all these things, it seems as if it's a burden that I'd probably choose not to carry or add to my plate.
I get that. I get that a lot. I think maybe I previously may not have got that component because of what the fatherhood journey has been for me. It's been very rewarding on many levels, but there are also things that I've not had to deal with. For instance, the burden of carrying a child and what that does to the mother, the impact that it has on real physical changes. You know, there some women become incontinent because of the expansion that happens there, and it never really goes away. Some women develop we call it the mum belly, which doesn't go away no matter what you do, because there's actually I was watching a program on Podcast and Chill, and they had a gynecologist and a surgeon there that talk about the actual expansion of the muscle to the point where it physically cannot get back together, so it will always be like that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's dealing with things like that, and then dealing with the mental load of motherhood. Men don't really go through postpartum depression and all of that stuff. Maybe because they have 2 weeks off, they go back, and then you got somebody who's with this newborn every day, and you have a child who cries a lot. You know, I've been in a room with babies that cry for 10, 15 minutes, and at some point you start to feel like, hey, you know, this is a bit loud. But imagine that being the sound that a woman is hearing consistently for 8 hours whilst you're away.
But Tinto, I wanted to ask, I hear parents talk a lot about the process is rewarding. Could you just paint a picture of what this reward is like? Because I struggle to see how rewarding it is, and I never really understand what people say when they say it's rewarding.
Okay, so I'll speak from my perspective. And here's the difficulty that you might have understanding that. Let's assume I'm a virgin, I've never had sex before. Try to describe what it's like to have sex to me.
I think, can I say a euphoric feeling? I don't know. It's not describable, but there's some sort of even physical pleasure that you feel, I guess. Wow, that's such an interesting question.
Do you get where I'm getting with this, right? Describing what it's like and the rewards that come with parenthood is about as difficult as it is to describe to a virgin what it's like to have sex, one, or it's as good as you try and explain to me what it's like to have period pain.
Yeah.
You could have as many descriptors as you can, but you can say it's like having thorns jabbed into your stomach. I've never had thorns jabbed into my stomach, so I can't relate to that pain. But the closest I can get to in terms of that is that the rewarding component for me is that you start developing things within yourself that you didn't know were important, such as patience.
So it's sort of a way of self-healing.
It definitely is more about what it does to you as an individual, what it does to me as an individual. So number one, patience, which I don't think I really had much of before my son came onto the planet. And I've seen a great extension of that because they really do test your patience.
Yeah.
And you have to take a step back and remind yourself that this is a young human being who's just navigating life as they understand it in their world. So one, patience is one thing that I found to be a reward that has come to being a parent. Number two, a lot of compassion, because the way that you love a child is completely different to the way that you love a partner. And trying to explain the difference is, again, very, very difficult. They are two very different forms of love. You can't even compare them.
Yeah.
Right? And then number three, there are a lot of firsts that happen with children. From the moment that they're born and they cry for the first time, hearing that for the first time is intriguing, it's interesting, it's nice. And then they do their first poo, which is very black, right? And I found that quite fascinating, oddly enough, right? To say that, okay, the digestive system is now working, that's their first poo. And seeing that was like, okay, interesting. And then the point that the umbilical cord drops off, I found particularly interesting because I'm like, oh, imagine the human body at some point eventually says, okay, this has been around for too long. It's dried up. Let it drop off. And then you see them starting to track you as a parent, because when they're super, super young, weeks old, their eyes are kind of all over the place. They're not really following who you are and what you have around you. And then at some point you start seeing the eyes focusing on you. And then once that focus is locked in, you start seeing them smile. You start hearing them cooing. You start seeing them having their first teeth. You start seeing them do their first crawl, or they start battling, I've forgotten what it is now, colic. Go what's happening in the tummy. All of those, for me, all of those transformations, all of those changes, knowing that I'm navigating this as a human who's never raised a child before, I find rewarding.
Okay, I wanted to ask a follow-up question, but I might feel as if now I'm becoming the interviewer here. But don't you think you can experience all those things even through other children? Do they have to be directly yours for you to feel those things? Because things like compassion, things like seeing the first of each of those things, I know for sure it's more intimate because now you actually getting to see it live. But I feel as if those same benefits that people could be talking about are also within experience of people who choose to not have children. I feel as if you could still experience them. Well, I say this because I have a niece, and she's the cutest little thing ever, and a nephew as well. So I've gotten to see all those things, and I can see how even for me it has changed me, but it still doesn't affirm my. It doesn't make me change my mind about having my own kids. Recently, we were hospitalized, or rather, my niece was hospitalized, and we had to go see her every day. So I even feel that compassion that you're talking about. But I wonder, does that become reason enough for me to explore the journey? So you get what I'm saying. Sometimes what people paint as benefits for me do not feel very convincing.
Do you drive?
Yes.
You do? Okay. Do you own a car?
Yeah.
The car that you have versus a car that you rent, which one do you drive more recklessly?
The one that you rent because it's not yours.
And and which one do you care for more, the rental or the one that you own?
The one that you own, because the liability is all on you.
Yeah, the liability is all on you, and then taking care of it, making it look and feel like it's brand new, making sure that it's intact is your responsibility, and you feel good about your car looking great.
Yeah.
That's similar to what it's like having a child of your own versus a child that's not yours. Not to say that you're reckless with one that is not yours, but you pay more attention naturally to the one that is yours because it's yours.
Yeah, for sure.
If I'm to come into your car and I'm having a pie, you know how messy pies are.
Yeah.
You take one bite and you got crumbs everywhere.
Everywhere.
If I do that as I'm sitting on the passenger side of your car, and I not only have one pie, but I have three.
Yeah.
And at the same time, whilst I'm doing that, I'm spilling my drink every now and again because it's a bumpy road.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, hey man, come on, can you be a bit more careful? You know, you will feel it that, hey, something is happening here to something that's mine. Whereas a hired car, I could have 10 pies and you probably wouldn't even notice that I've made it as dusty and messy as it is. It's still a vehicle that takes you from point A to point B, but how you feel about them and how you care for them is quite different. One is going to be more intimate than the other.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel it's like with children.
Did you ever think about, from my side of the world, there's a lot of conversations around, if you choose to not have children, who'll take care of you when you're older? And I'm like, I'm not sure that's the right approach. So did you also think about parenthood as a way of you securing your future? Because I think that's the one part that I still debate with myself, trying to see, does that really make sense?
No, I wasn't trying to have my son when he came into the world. What basically happened is if you're doing grown-up stuff, expect grown-up results.
Yeah.
Right. So he came unexpectedly. And contrary to what people may think, I actually did not want to have children at all. I was exactly like you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And what I enjoyed about the most and I wanted to enjoy was freedom and flexibility that came without of not having children. Because I was able to travel and do a lot of the things that I enjoyed as hobbies.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed them. And remember when the announcement came, when I discovered that she was pregnant, I was like, oh snap. The first thing I thought about was I'm not going to have as much fun as I wanted to. I'm not going to travel as much as I want to. I thought about all the things I was not going to be able to do.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And the first 3 months of that pregnancy was a mind F for me
Yeah.
because I had a lot of undoing to do.
Yeah.
And I think I only really started enjoying that journey when she was maybe about 6 months
Oh.
pregnant. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
'cause-
then I only really started enjoying my son, I think, when he was a month and a half old. So I was like, oh, okay. Now I look at my life and say, I don't know what life was about. Because becoming a parent requires a radical change.
Yeah, it does.
You can't be the same person. You have to be. Well, I've had to become a parent, and what that
Yeah.
means for me is put a lot of what little man's requirements, because he's so young and is dependent, at the forefront.
So that brings the school of thought of purpose, where people say that children give you a purpose. Yeah.
Yes, they do. And a lot of what you do with work, etc., really does change. So I remember previously I used to work for the sake of just making sure that I got something at the end of the month for me. But having a child, and this is something I spoke about in episode 159, is that it forced me, it really, really forced me to up my game significantly and very quickly. And I'm grateful for that, because I would not have had to change in income that I have now if I had stuck to being a single guy with no kids.
Are there moments when you want to step away from it?
Step away from what? From parenthood?
Yeah.
No, I actually want to have more.
Oh, okay.
Because it's completely changed me. The things that I found as fun and entertaining and engaging, it's just different. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to explain. So I used to do a lot of film work, a lot of film work. And I used to enjoy being behind the camera, interacting with people, engaging with people, meeting this person and that person. I still enjoy it somehow. But half of the time that I'm on set, I'm thinking about time I could be doing stuff with my son to teach him a little bit about the world.
Oh, okay.
So when he came onto the planet, I gave it up. I sold all of my gear, all of my lights, all of my sound stuff, all of my camera things. Gave them up completely to allow me to have time with him on this journey.
So how does that then tie back to purpose, Tinto? Because if you give up something that was very good for you, and again, I feel as if then me and you had the same initial concept of not having kids just to have the flexibility. But now here comes you giving up your passion to make room for the little human. So I don't know. How then do you find the balance between raising that person and also living a purposeful life? I guess for me, that's where the delicate balance is at.
Yeah.
And there's more leaning on me for maintaining my independence rather than introducing a new variable to this equation.
So, but I thought at that time that my purpose was to give people entertainment and joy through film and music. And then my son came along and I put all of that away, completely put it to the side. And then remember when I was saying to you that one of the things that I definitely learned by becoming a parent was to become more patient?
Yeah.
It also made me more empathetic. In that I can take a step back now and listen to what people have to say and be in their shoes and relate because of the experiences that I've had with my child that have required me to make that move. And now I think I'm more clear what my purpose in life really is.
Yeah.
Because at the time that I put away the music stuff, I still felt that I needed to be behind a microphone of a sort. And this is how the podcast was born.
Oh, wow.
And through interacting with people on the podcast, I'm becoming a little clearer because I enjoy so much listening to people's experiences and what they've gone through that I feel my real purpose really should be about helping people overcome difficulties they have about opening up and being vulnerable.
Okay.
Because it almost feels like second nature.
Yeah.
And so through having a child, I'm discovering what I think my real purpose is. And I'm starting to invest both the time and the effort and the money into pursuing something related to being with people and opening up and being vulnerable.
Yeah.
So now I'm starting to think about doing a psychology degree, a psychology and mental health degree, and then pursuing counseling and therapy as something, because it has come as a result of being patient and paying attention to people, which I doubt I would have bothered even trying to do if I didn't have my son.
So it sounds like technically a game of chances.
I mean, but what isn't? Even getting into a relationship with somebody is a game of chance.
Yeah, it is a game of chance. So, what then would you say is, there are people who've actually come out. There's actually a series I saw done by a certain NGO where they were talking to women who have regretted getting on the motherhood journey. And when I watched that interview, I was like, oh my God, I wonder how many people will be willing to listen to this conversation. Mostly because those women now talk about how having the child had to bring things like career sort of delays in terms of milestones that you'd have achieved at the same pace as your partner. You probably start slowing down. Of course, depending on the country one is living in, there are things like maternity leaves, which are probably limited in some countries than others. There are things like access to medical care and stuff like that. So I feel as if there's so many variables that the woman has to keep in mind before making that decision. And some of them are not even within her control, because things like getting maybe an off day from work to go help your child get medical access in some countries is not even as flexible. The human rights have not advanced to a point where it allows for you to just actually say, I'm taking the day off because of my son, and such like things. So when I look at all things together and try to assess, is this chance worth taking? That's where I lack the answer. For me, it leans more on, I'd rather not.
And it's good that you're making that assessment, because having a child is a lifelong commitment.
It is, yeah.
My dad now is 75.
Mm-hmm.
And, every time that we talk regularly, I am constantly reminded by myself that I am a child. And I'm okay being a child. So even though I'm an adult, I am still a child. It doesn't stop. So you do really need to assess whether you have the capacity to do this or you don't, because it's lifelong.
Yeah.
And some of the things that do impact women, and we can't ignore this. And I think, like I was saying, we didn't pay attention to this with my partner in crime, Nino Brown, in episode 159, are things like the career, things like the career interruption and the lower earnings. That is very real, because women experience career gaps. So they're more likely to take time off to reduce the work hours to take care of children, resulting in career interruptions. And these can overall reduce your work experience and make you come across as less qualified, in quotes.
Yeah.
Right. And then I know there've been some studies that indicate that mothers earn less than non-mothers.
Yeah, true.
Because and they actually call this the motherhood penalty. Because they can't really commit to the job, because they have to be in and out, or if they do come back, they have to do things part-time. And then, in fact, there's a statistic that was done by Forbes, if I remember, where they say that for every year that a woman spends out of the workforce after childbirth, they typically reduce their earnings by 4 to 10% with every child.
Wow. Yeah.
And then you get fewer promotions and raises because you're not in the office to be seen how well you're doing. Your career path does become limited because of family demands. And then you miss things like networking opportunities because you don't have childcare for someone to look after the child. There are increased financial burdens because childcare, especially in these developed countries, is not cheap.
Yeah, it's not.
So there is a lot.
And actually, the interesting thing is that even the other side of this coin has its own sort of penalties. For instance, you'll see a lot of people not perceiving you as a serious person in society just because you don't have children.
Yeah, unfortunately.
There are two sides to this coin. Yeah. So there are penalties for the child and also penalties for not having the child. I think for not having the child, it's mostly societal and not really economic. It's mostly societal perceptions. Because I'll come across people who will just be like, just try, just get one, just, if you get one, you'll change your mind. So I guess, yeah,
I used to say this almost in every episode that, have a child if you can. And I would encourage that rhetoric, but that's because my experience has been incredibly rewarding.
yeah,
Incredibly rewarding. But that's not the same for everyone.
yeah,
So I think I'm a little more careful on encouraging that, because people have various reasons why they wouldn't want to have children. Some are less transparent about them. Some of them have been dealing with sexual abuse from a young age to the point where they don't ever want that to happen.
yeah, true.
So there's various traumas and various reasons why people don't want to have children, and some can't. They can't bear children, both men and women.
Yeah,
And sometimes bringing that to the fore and making people discuss those things makes them uncomfortable. And they'll
yeah,
rather not. And it's not everyone who's got the guts to openly say, I've got trouble having children, because it comes with stigma, depending again on culture and society that you've just referred to.
yeah,
So having children, I think, should really be a personal choice. And if you know that you don't want to have children, you better be doing things to make sure that you don't have children. So in your instance, if you
yeah.
decide to have sex with someone, be sure not to have it unprotected.
Yeah, and Tinta, actually, I remember you saying that it's important to take note of your story so that in case you have to tell it again, you're not skipping certain things. So remember the lesson of taking charge of your own life decisions.
Yeah.
So that I needed to tie that to the conversation we're having today, because for sure, if I do not want to have those children, then me myself should be taking the initiative and not letting that initiative lie on somebody else's. So I was failing miserably then for expecting that the decision to not want children then is being sustained by somebody's decisions for their own vasectomy. I don't know what his motivation was for the vasectomy,
Correct.
but
Yeah.
now I was leaning on that rather than me taking action and taking charge of my own life to ensure that I don't end up there. So I think that's why when I was reflecting back, I had to, it's like, yeah, I remember.
It's important. You get on contraception yourself, and then with the guy who you're having sex with, insist on him having a condom.
Yeah.
Then at least you're increasing, in quotes, the chances of no accidents happening. But one thing you also got to remember is God is a funny guy sometimes. Because I know of kids. I got a friend of mine who fell pregnant with contraception. She had an intrauterine device.
Yeah.
And the baby is bouncy and healthy.
There's a common joke that there was a kid born in my country holding that device.
Yeah, I've actually seen images of that. It's a white baby though that I've seen with that. So God really does have jokes, and which is why sometimes I tend to think that God is a way of directing our lives in the way that they really should go.
Yeah.
When we think we know best. I mean, there's the story of Jonah in the Bible, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the whole issue about Nineveh and Tashish. He thought he could go a certain way, ended up getting chowed by a big fish or whatever sea creature that was, and being taken to where he really needed to be. I wasn't trying to have children.
Yeah.
I was having sex. I was having unprotected sex. But then you do grown-up stuff, you get grown-up results.
Yeah.
Now I've got an incredible child, and now I look back and I say to myself, I don't know how I didn't do this from a long time ago.
I think I must admit I'm very scared of counting on science for this decision, mostly because the available, well, I haven't researched that far, but I do feel as if taking a permanent contraception at this point will then probably be problematic if God does choose to take me on a different journey, right?
Yeah.
So I think I try to think about that part of whether do I want to make this a permanent decision. So for now, what I've done is I've actually put a timeline and said that if I don't change my mind by a certain age, then for sure I'll just make peace with it and now head on to a permanent solution for it. But for now, it's just the short-term kind of long-term solutions that I'm leaning on, but not really permanent ones to the point of tying tubes and stuff like that. So there's the debate of what if science actually fails me?
Yeah.
And then there's also the debate of what if I do wake up one day and I change my mind. So people used to tell me that I'll change my mind in my late 20s. I didn't change my mind then. So I'm pushing the timeline a bit more to see if I'll change my mind. So, yeah,
Are you having sex right now?
here and there.
So yes.
Okay, yes.
Are you having it unprotected?
Yes.
So every encounter you're having is leaning you closer towards having a child. Are you on contraception?
Yes.
Okay.
But you see, there's the margin
Yeah,
of
there's
error.
a room for error. Yeah, there is.
Because-
There really is.
yeah, there's a margin of error. So I guess that's what I was saying. Sometimes science might even fail me. I might make all these plans and science fails me, or God decides otherwise and decides I could be the next mother of nations. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But if I was going by my own understanding of life as it is currently, oh, it's quite a big commitment to sign up for. And Tinto, not that I am afraid of commitments. I don't mind responsibility at all. And I'm pretty good at following through, even with terms of my own other life commitments. I'm pretty good at following through. So I do know for sure that I can commit. It's just a question of the child and how much this person needs and how much it takes to raise one and make one a whole human. Oof, sounds like a big task. Yeah.
Have confidence in what God slash the universe, what the bigger picture beyond you has in store. Because half the time we haven't got a clue what that is.
Yeah.
You know, for all we know, it's for you to lead a life like this, and shine a light on people who are experiencing the same difficulty. Because I know a growing number of both men and women that don't want to have children. And they got very solid reasons and they stick to them and they make them work. Maybe that's what, whatever superior being has mapped out and planned for them. And, you know, it becomes their reality and it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
But also just be open to that plan not being what you currently think it is in your head. Because, like I say, God has got jokes. He'll hit you with stuff that you didn't even know you needed or was good for you.
Oof. Yeah.
And it's very likely to take you through a fairly painful journey to change that mindset.
Oh my God, no, Tinto, you can't say that.
No, I'm not saying it will happen.
I know.
It was the case for some people.
Yeah.
For me, what that pain was trying to tell my brain, which I told for so many years that I don't want to have children, that okay, this child is coming. It was very difficult on me mentally.
Yeah.
It was tough. It was a tough 3 months of coming to terms with the fact that, okay, this is happening and it's not going away. And even after he was born, it's like, okay, what do I do with this? I'm not supposed to be feeling what I'm feeling. And then there was a lot of internal conflict. That's
You see
the
this
discomfort.
thing people call a calling. You know that thing that people often say, oh, I had a calling for this and I had a calling for that. Like ever since I was a young kid, I never really felt the inclination towards kids, Tinto. Like I struggled to play with kids. I was more like I spent most of the time maybe reading. I really spent my life just by myself, and to date, I still struggle with children a lot. Not that I hate them, but I feel I can already feel how overwhelming it gets when I'm around children. So I wonder if I had had this feeling for this many years, am I really then just trying to convince my mind? Because I can bet you for as long as I remember, I always struggled around kids.
There's something that I'm going to tell you about offline about that, about a certain view that we have from youth and young. And this is why I say God is a God of jokes.
Yeah.
Because that view at that point to my current view are polar opposites.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I'm grateful for the renewed view.
Okay.
It's so far the best thing that could have happened. And this is why I say God is a God of jokes. as in for the best
You
part.
better not play one on me.
You really like you really don't know what he has in store for you until he
Yeah.
unwraps the present. You just don't know. And best believe when he does unwrap the present, um, you will be a little shocked and uncomfortable with how it's making you feel because it goes contrary to what you've said in your mind.
Yeah.
Imagine you telling yourself all these years that I hate children, hate children, hate children.
I didn't say I hate
And then when
children.
you and then okay, not hate, sorry, my bad. Imagine saying to yourself, yeah, I'm not great with kids. I don't want to have kids, don't want to be around kids. And then you have one of your own and you're like, yo, man, this is nice. It will mess with your brain for a little bit.
Yeah.
It really will because we all form images of what we think we are, and then when that is challenged, nobody likes a challenge. It's
Yeah.
the normal cycle of change.
God better not play that joke on me because hey, I'll make so
If you
many
don't want
demands
that
the
joke,
situation.
don't have sex. That's all I'll say.
What?
if you don't want that joke, do not be. You might as well become. What do they call? I struggle between these descriptions like being celibate and I don't know what else they say when you choose not to have sex when you've had it before. You know, yeah, you better become that.
Like I start practicing secondary virginity or something.
Whatever you want to call it, because I'm saying God is loaded with jokes.
God, please
Oh.
don't listen to Tinto.
or for all we know, right? I'm assuming you're dating or in a relationship, whatever your situation is, right?
I'm actually intentionally staying away from dating because I'd want to get more clarity now. Because
More clarity on what?
on this whole future relationships and the outlook of my life, like I really want to take a moment to assess things even further. I know for sure I can't get full on clarity on everything, and you don't get answers for everything until you actually live through a certain experience. But before I take on another relationship, I still feel as if some of these things that I experienced in my previous ones need to be addressed. And they need to be addressed to a point where if again I'm jumping into a new relationship, then I'm not carrying certain levels of baggage into it. So for now, for sure, I'm not dating, and it's intentional. And it's intentional just so that I can also assess what I want in terms of dating, relationships, and the future.
You see, you're already a good candidate for this unexpected change to happen. Because of what you said earlier on, that with the previous guy, you were so open minded, you would consider having children with him.
Yeah.
Then the second guy, you wouldn't consider having children with him. So I think there is a component of who this person is, because if whoever this individual is coming in there really trying to alleviate as much of the perceived burdens that you pointed out. There are some that I think are a bit out of your control, such as what happens to you physically. And also what happens to the career aspects of that and the trajectories. There's really very little a husband can do, I think. Unless, for instance, he says, okay, you're going to take a 3-month paternity, you go back to work, I'll ask the office to work from home more to help with that. Then, there's some help there that can be given.
Yeah.
And if you have somebody who gives you all these pointers, like I say, God's full of jokes. You might find yourself starting to challenge your own self and say, oh no, this actually feels safe enough for me to try and do this.
Yeah, the aspect of, I think we can't remove the aspect of who you get that child with, because then again, that also determines the wellness of the child. Because if you do get it with someone who you can barely raise that child with, maybe because of certain differences, or maybe because they're not even present, then that also becomes problematic. So for sure, we can't eliminate that point from this whole situation. But hey, I don't know.
All I would say is choose a lane, stick to it, be comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But be open to radical changes coming from from unexpected things.
Yeah.
And embrace it if it does happen.
If it does happen, however,
if it
we
does
used to
happen,
write our own
embrace it.
fate. If we were writing our own journeys, I'd have already sealed mine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether it's thankfully or what, but there's something bigger than us that sees way, 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 way ahead and always has a plan for us, because my view is that God wants everybody to win.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think he takes pleasure in seeing someone not winning. God, I think, designed all of us to win, except that whatever victories that we have may
Yeah.
not happen at the same time.
I'd really want to meet someone who is in their late years, who probably pursued a child-free journey and would love to tell their story on how it has been, any regrets and stuff like that. Mostly because, yes, as you said, there are a lot of people now who are choosing to not have children, but I'd want to hear it from someone who's already done it and gotten to the other side of life that people think will be harder, and hear what they have to say about it, just for me to sort of have some insights, not really copy them, just have some insights around what life is like then.
I don't know if you'll get the right insight because you don't miss what you don't know.
Yeah.
So for somebody who's born blind from birth and now they're 50, 60, they can describe their world as they understand it. And then if you ask them, do you wish you could see? You might be surprised. They might say no.
True.
Because they've never seen. So they don't know what it's like to see. So they don't know what they're missing.
Okay, that's interesting.
And so this person who's never had a child, they don't know what it's like to have a child, but they know what it's like not to have one. And they'll describe
See,
that.
that's what I want to hear.
You see, now they will describe that very happily, very freely, because it's their reality.
Yeah.
It's what they know. They don't know the other side. So I don't know if you'll be given a balanced view. I can tell you what it's like because I've been on both ends. I've been on the end where I didn't want to have children. Now I have one. And for me, if I was to pick a side, I would never go back to not having a child. Never.
Ooh, wow.
I wouldn't even imagine. In fact, if I could take myself to my younger days, I would have had a child a lot sooner. I don't know if I'd have been more mature about it because I am more mature now about life, etc., and I've had the child late in quotes. I wouldn't go back.
It's still, oof.
Yeah, take your time with it. There's no rush. There's no urgency. You've already made a decision to it, and it's an okay decision to take.
Tinto, again, you're saying there's no rush, but there's actually a rush because remember, us guys are on a biological clock.
Yeah, but you don't want to have children, so that doesn't matter.
But you see, if God's purpose then, because you have really preached today, so if then it comes to a point where I'm changing my mind last minute, you see, then I'm complicating the situation. So but some of the things I've started looking at is fertility options for later on in life. So looking at here, can I access, what kind of options will I have access? If I did ever change my mind at some point, again, I was tying this to if I ever decide to permanently tie and then I change my mind, what happens? You get. So I think from the women's side, there's probably a time that you need to keep in mind, but maybe not. Luckily, there's science to help engineer an alternative.
I don't know if you're as committed to not having children as you think you are.
I think I've listened to you today and I've asked you about the motivations and stuff like that. And I see your point of life does change, mostly because I can see how I've told myself this is the journey I'm taking on in life, but I've ended up taking a different route altogether.
Yeah.
So I do make room for, I always leave that room for, and that's why I told you I have an idea of being child free because I call it an idea because I don't know how logical it is and I don't know how doable it is. But if we were going by my own inclination towards life and how I prefer my life to be, trust me, I'm probably 70% sold on that. Yeah. So there's that 30% for sure. That I can't deny. There's some room for change, but if it were up to me and not up to God's fate for you and God's outcome for your life, then we'd probably even be closer to 95% done with that decision. Yeah.
Yeah. My closing words would be: find comfort in the decision that you've made, because it's ultimately yours. The decision is ultimately yours and what you're comfortable with. You got people who tell you don't get into relationships because they always end sour.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, then there's a chance that you might feel lonely for a considerable amount of time. And you might try and find things to cover the gaps, yes, which could work. But you've had a good relationship, you've had a bad one.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying that a lot of this stuff feels like chance. Yeah, there is an element of chance/risk in it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also, you've got to be very aware of some of the things that you can handle and you can't handle. You need to know your patterns. You need to know your deal breakers. You need to know
Yeah.
the things that you can stand up for and things that you can't. And just stick to those, because somewhere along the line, there's always someone that is matched up and paired up for you the right way.
Oh, yeah. That I believe in.
Yeah, it's just a case of God hasn't made the stars align for that to happen. And when it happens, it will be effortless.
Yeah.
And maybe those conversations about having children will also become effortless. Or,
But you've
or
assumed that that person wants children too.
that's what I'm saying. Or, because I was just about to add, or that
Uh-huh.
person doesn't want to have kids and you guys are speaking the same language and you're good.
Yeah.
But then within that marriage, if you decide, yeah, we don't like protection, yeah, God might have different ideas for you on that front.
I guess I'd really want to meet someone else who is open to that idea of child free, just to see what life will be like with him. Because
Yeah.
in as much as Peter had a vasectomy, there was already a kid. You get so.
Yeah. You see, so maybe he's already harnessed the benefits of having the children and doesn't want to replicate them, because now he's on both worlds. May
Yeah.
have been in a time when he didn't want to have children. Now he has children, and he can make a judgment call based on that experience. I know
Yeah.
many men who've had vasectomies because they're like, I wouldn't want to have more children, not because it's restrictive, but I mean, it's restrictive in terms of freedom and flexibility,
Mhm.
but it could be financially restrictive. And I can see how having more than 2 children in this country can be challenging financially.
Yeah.
So I think it's about just making an informed choice. Just make sure you
Yeah.
got
For
the
sure.
information that you are comfortable with.
Mm.
Because when you think about how our value systems are built as individuals, it's a
Mhm.
combination of the things that we pick out in life that we agree with and like, and things that we don't agree with and we
Yeah.
let go of.
True.
And that's how
And
some
being
people end up
comfortable in that
choosing.
decision.
Yeah, and that's how some people end up choosing what church they go to. If they
Mm-hmm.
go to a church that says, "Oh yeah, we encourage you to have sex with people whenever you want," they might be like, "Oh, that's a value that I like."
Yeah.
Versus one that says we discourage you from having premarital sex. You make a
Mm-hmm.
choice between the two, and wherever you lean will eventually land you up in what you define as your value system and your reality,
Yeah.
because you pick and choose. So whatever it is that you're now picking and choosing as far as becoming a parent goes is really down to what you feel works for you within this moment.
Yeah, for sure.
And it will form your value system, and your value system dictates how you pick and choose what you do. Like now you're kind of steering towards being careful how you have sex, because
Yeah.
within your value system you feel that having a child will compromise my freedom and my flexibility.
Yes, true.
So just be crystal clear about those, and you'll be fine. I mean, there'll be no surprises. Really, they really will be no surprises at all.
Yeah, for sure.
And one of the things that I enjoy quoting, and I've seen with a lot of the decisions that I've made, and some that my very close friends have made, is
Mm-hmm.
that it's important for you to understand the math behind the decisions you're making. And the quote goes something like, "The best math you can learn is how to calculate the future cost of your current decision."
Wow. Yeah. I'll take that with me for sure. How to calculate?
Yeah, so the best math you can learn is how to calculate the future cost of your current decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll share that with you now. I've just sent it to you, and
Thank
that
you.
for me is such a good line, because at the moment that I'm about to make a decision, I'd take a step back and say, what could be the possible impact of this adversely?
Yeah.
And what could be the good impact of it in a good way? And off the back of that, I make my decision.
I think that's a good way to look at it. And for sure, it's definitely something I'll be applying in my life. I already do, but yeah, I'll keep that top of mind.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
This was only meant to be a short midweek drop, but geez, I guess children really drive conversations that are long, eh?
Yeah, maybe the next few years we'll have another conversation.
Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate this.
Thank you as well.
Right, enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, thanks.
This is my jam.
It's the midweek drop, yeah.